talk some NFL because I know what the deal is, right? Like it's all Padres, all Dodgers. That's where everybody's head's at. And maybe secondarily, way in the rearview mirror, at least in San Diego, are the Lakers and the Heat. I would say in LA, because it's game one between the Padres and the Dodgers, that the Lakers Heat is very much the primary sporting event tonight. So I want everybody who's listening in LA, I want everybody who's listening in San Diego together to catch our breath for a moment. And let's just turn our attentions as we kill some time, man. This is like middle relief pitching right now as we're waiting to get to the game tonight. John Clayton, our longtime NFL insider, is here. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon. We're not talking, everybody's just not talking about the Chargers right now. Gee, I thought that would be one of the main topics. Not here, but in L.A.
Well, let's talk about this, John. The Chargers have now lost 3 straight games, and yet this young kid quarterback who steps in because the team doctor winds up hurting the starting quarterback, this kid has come in and played his butt off. Even as the most stringent Charger hater that I am, even I can analytically look and see this kid's a really, really nice young player. But the fact of the matter is he hasn't won, and it seems like Anthony Lynn is going to give Tyrod Taylor back his starting job when he is healthy. I'm just curious, what did you think of the Chargers, the way they had Tom Brady down, and Brady comes flying back with 5 touchdown passes? What'd you think?
Well, obviously you got to get some things fixed up on defense, but I'm in your corner. I think, how do you go back to Tyrod Taylor, seeing that Justin Herbert, and the comparable on him is Matt Ryan? People thought in what you see in Matt Ryan, you see in Justin Herbert. And it's like, you might as well stay with him. Particularly, it's a 1-3 season right now. You can still come back in the AFC, where it's tougher to come back in the NFC. But what you're wondering about, where does that stand for Anthony Lynn on the job front? Because I know that they like him. I know that they're very reluctant to change coaches. That's not a Dean Spanos thing. But, if all of a sudden you go back to Tyrod Taylor and you continue losing, you don't want to lose this quarterback. This quarterback is really, really good.
Are the Chargers committed to just being terrible? Is that the reason why? Because, honestly, hasn't Tyrod Taylor had enough chances already? Like, what? I don't understand I know he's 0-3, but you took him 6th overall. And he's shown progress. You have how many injuries on IR? You didn't have Mike Williams. You didn't have your center. Eckler got hurt. Why are you going to Tyrod, who's had a million chances, when you have this kid?
Yeah, and that's what clearly, when they draft a quarterback with the 6th pick, and particularly Tom Telesco, this is the guy that he really wanted, and resisted the idea of maybe trading up just in case Miami would have taken him. It fell in his lap what he was hoping for. And, of course, what you're now seeing is exactly what you're hoping for, a good young quarterback. And I think now it's a matter of continue the building around him and, getting better on defense and making sure there's enough healthy guys on offense. I think you got to stay by him because, again, if you go to Tyrod Taylor just because, Anthony Lynn likes him, I think you got Andy in job trouble.
Talking to John Clayton this afternoon. I just want to tell everybody, John's here with us as he is weekly. John Clayton is here. He's been our longtime NFL insider. He's on the sidelines of Seahawks broadcast for ESPN 710 in Seattle. John's got one of the most popular football podcasts out there and also does a lot of work for the Washington Post. So, John is everywhere, and here he is with us on Tuesdays. Go ahead, Brown.
Where do people send their Cam Newton apology letters? Because I watched the Patriots last night, and baby, he ain't it. I don't know who thought that Stenham was going to beat Cam Newton out in an actual one-on-one competition if there was a preseason. But people need to start apologizing to Cam because I honestly believe with Cam Newton, they probably would have beaten the Chiefs last night. What do you think?
I don't think they would have beaten the Chiefs because, again, you still have to fight off Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is at home. They still have some holes in that Patriots defense, but certainly, he would make up a good portion of the 16 points or so that they lost by because he's that good. I watched it a couple weeks ago in Seattle when he was able to come back, which of course most people thought because it's such a running offense that they wouldn't be able to come back, but they were able to come back and he was 1 yard away from winning that football game. What we're trying to see with the Patriots is where do they stand right now? Are they a Super Bowl contender or are they a playoff contender? I mean, clearly with Cam Newton, I think they're a playoff contender because, again, I think there's enough holes in the front seven of their defense, because of the 4 linebackers that they lost and losing Danny Shelton and all that, 2 of the 3 safeties, that there's going to be some holes there. But with Cam Newton, I don't know if they could keep up with the way things are going in Buffalo with Josh Allen, but certainly they would make the playoffs because they'll beat a lot of the teams, like the Clevelands would be in the mix right now. And so they're not a Super Bowl contender, but they're a playoff contender. But when they don't have Cam Newton, they're not a playoff contender.
But on that note, they had a lot of guys opt out. Is there an NFL rule that says guys cannot opt back in?
That's the rule, yeah. There was a certain date, and it kept extending it. And once you get to that date, you can't change it back because then you get your $150,000, or if you're a high-risk person, you get your $350,000, and then the contract goes into next year and the year after that, or however long the contract's going to be. But that was the deadline had passed, and you can't change it. 69 players ended up opting out, and they can't change that number.
Yeah, John Clayton is here, our NFL insider on Kaplan and Crew. John, let me ask you, you mentioned Cleveland, and I'm sure you know that I'm becoming a Cleveland Browns fan this year, as my former college roommate is now their offensive coordinator. They're 3-1. They went on the road. They beat Dallas. Their early loss of the season was a respectable loss in game 1 with a new coaching staff to Baltimore. So you tell us, should we be buying Cleveland at 3-1?
Yes, you should, because I didn't know if they were going to be able to do that because there's been so many problems through the years in Cleveland. But you look talent-wise, remember, they have 6 Pro Bowl players on offense and 4 on defense. 10 Pro Bowl players are players who've been to the Pro Bowl. That's a pretty respectable number. And now to be able to go like they did, and Kevin Stefanski and Alex Van Pelt doing a great job with the offense, totally changing it around. They've gone to a running offense. They're averaging over 200 yards a game, which I think is good. It takes the pressure off of Baker Mayfield because instead of having Baker Mayfield to show, they show they're a better team. You know the talent that they have on defense, particularly the defensive line. Myles Garrett is one of the best defensive players in the league. Sheldon Richardson does a good job. So you put all that together, and I think that I picked them to be the 7th seed, making it as a wild card, and I think that's exactly where they're heading.
John, Dak Prescott turned down $30 million in the offseason. He's playing pretty good. They're 1-3, but he's throwing the ball 75 times a game. What the hell is going to happen with Dak, the contract, and Jerry Jones?
Well, he turned down $34.5 million. He did want more than that, but they're not going to have any choice but they have to pay him because it probably won't be the $39 million that it went to Deshaun Watson. Probably won't be the $39.8 that ultimately goes to Patrick Mahomes. But I have to think right now he's taken his value up to $38.5 million. Now the problem is, they have so many high cap numbers next year, and what's going to be a down cap. And so I don't know how they're going to be able to put that all together. But I think it's very simple. Jerry Jones made a mistake by not getting him signed because they can manage the cap better if they get him done. They certainly can't put the second franchise tag on him because it'll be too expensive, and they're going to let too many players go. But, he's the only thing that keeps him competitive right now. Mike Nolan is doing, I think, a terrible job changing that defense too much, making it more complicated. You can see that there's communication issues. He's trying to go to a hybrid 3-4, 4-3 defense, and it's not working. And so now, they're giving up so many points a game, with 36.5 points a game. It's ridiculous. Here's Dak out there getting 31.5 points. He had them come back for their only win on a 19-point deficit. And, now the defense is getting so bad, he can't overcome those things.
John, I felt like Bill O'Brien should have been fired a year ago. I don't understand how a guy takes over that much of the team's operation, being the GM and the head coach, and then you trade away quite possibly the best wide receiver in the league, and he still kept the job. Why did they fire him in the beginning of the season as to waiting to this point now? Well,
my feeling is that Bob McNair's son, who runs the team, was afraid of Bill because Bill's a shouter, a yeller. He'll try to intimidate everybody in the office, including the owner. And I think that the owner's son was going around and he just was intimidated by him. And so now my feeling is, I don't know if it's been confirmed, but Bob McNair's wife ultimately said, this is it. We can't have this anymore because you can see the moves that he's made have just made it terrible. Here's Deshaun Watson, one of the top 6 quarterbacks in the league, and he's having his worst numbers. I mean, they're not barely getting 20 points a game. His numbers are the worst start he's ever had. And this is a team that Bill O'Brien put together that has 4 wide receivers making a combined $44 million a year, a $22 million left tackle, a $39 million quarterback, a $13 million running back, and let's see, one more thing, and they $11 million center. It's ridiculous. They got a $283 million payroll, and they're 0-4, and they're going to be doomed. They don't have a first-round pick next year. They gave that away, so it's a top 4 pick. This is going to take years for them to dig out what Bill O'Brien did to them as far as roster moves, and now not working. This is going to be a disaster.
You know what's interesting about this conversation? We're talking to John Clayton. Tell me who from the Bill Belichick tree has gone on to have success. I think of Charlie Weiss leaving and going to Notre Dame. I think of Romeo Crennel leaving and going, was it to Kansas City?
Kansas City, yeah.
Okay. I suppose right now we might think Mike Vrabel has a good start, but
Charlie Weiss left to Notre Dame.
I mentioned that.
Oh.
No. Y'all forgetting the Lions coach, Matt Patricia.
Yeah, Matt Patricia.
Brian Flores in Miami.
I mean, John.
The guy in New York.
Eric Mangini, yeah.
Yeah, the man genius, yeah. I mean, who does anybody leave Belichick and become a good head coach? And back to Browner's point is, who gave him all this control? What did he do to earn all this control?
I mean, basically intimidated everybody to get what he wanted, and he wanted to be the GM. He basically pushed for 2 GMs, and he fired 2 GMs because he wanted more power, wanted more money, and now you can look and see it's been a disaster. I mean, you can arguably say that Bill O'Brien is the most successful Belichick coach. Now, again, Mike Vrabel didn't coach for Belichick.
That's right.
I mean, he played for him, and he's a very successful coach. But what you're looking at with Bill O'Brien, he at least made 3 or 4 trips to the playoffs, even though there were 9-win teams, but he did make the playoffs. So he would be the most successful, which I think Romeo Crennel would be the second most successful of the Belichick coaches.
I love this stuff, by the way. I love coaches, quarterbacks. So, I love that.
There's one in college that's in Alabama that is a Bill Belichick coach, Nick Saban. I guess you could probably say he's the biggest success story.
He's doing all right. He's doing all right.
Yeah, he's good. Saban's good, but it's not in the NFL. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from his success, but I'm just looking for
Saban sucked in Miami.
Yeah, who are the Belichick coaches that go on to have success in the NFL? But what's also interesting about this conversation, John, is I love the question of Belichick versus Brady. Right now, the Patriots are 2-2, and the Buccaneers are 3-1, and Brady looks really good. I look at Aaron Rodgers. His team is 4-0. Mike McCarthy's Dallas Cowboys are 1-3. I'm interested in. There's no question that McCarthy was pushed out in Green Bay. They'd had enough of him, and Aaron Rodgers was there was a relationship problem there.
It was not a they; it was a he. It was Aaron Rodgers that wanted him out.
Right, and it was Bill Belichick who we perceived wanted Tom Brady out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now it's interesting to watch quarterbacks, coaches, separations, where they go, who succeeds. Right now, advantage Brady over Belichick. And right now, advantage Rodgers over Mike McCarthy, advantage players over coaches.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, because again, it's a players' league, and particularly at the quarterback position, if you have the right quarterback, I mean, you're going to do good things. And I think you saw, just like we talked about, hey, Cam Newton is the best quarterback they had. Not having him left them in a big void to be able to try to come back and even have a chance in that game. But Tom Brady, it's going to be interesting in this Thursday game coming up. The running backs may only have one running back. The receivers are all hurt. O.J. Howard blew out his Achilles. The injury list is such that even Rob Gronkowski is banged up on a Thursday night game with a short week. I mean, this could be a tough one, even though it's the Bears.
Whoa, John. Come on, don't do me like that, John. You ain't got to trash us like that publicly. Come on now.
I mean, you like the Bears, right?
Love. I don't like them. I love them.
You love him? Okay. What'd you think of Nick Foles and that strong performance that he had on Sunday?
Well, listen.
3 points. 3 points.
Listen.
We love this, by the way. This is great, John. Thank you.
Way to do me like this.
Way to go, John Clayton.
The Colts are statistically the best defense in the NFL, Sunday, they did a great job against a poorly planned Matt Nagy performance. So I'm expecting Nick Foles Thursday night on a short week to come back with a better rhythm, attacking the Tampa defense that you can score on, because look what the Chargers did to them. And like you just said, a Brady offense that's more often injured than healthy. So I like our chances, but I hear what you're saying. What Nick Foles did wasn't nothing to have a parade about, but Mitchell Trubisky couldn't have done better.
No, that's true. I mean, they made the right move in going to Foles. But then one thing about Foles is that as great as he was taking the Eagles when the injury to Carson Wentz and going to the Super Bowl and winning, is that even before that, some of the regular season games he has are pretty bad. I mean, you go back and some of the December games that he had in Philly, they were bad. But nevertheless, Carson at least got enough wins to get them in a good position in the playoffs. And then, of course, Foles, once he got into the playoffs, he did a really good job.
Hey, John, last thing. How do you think the NFL's done since they've had now their first COVID scare and delays in games and superstar players not being available? What do you think the aftermath from the COVID relationship is to the NFL?
Well, we got to see what they're going to do with the Titans, because something's amiss. And something I think has to come down that caused the fact that they had 18 positive tests in 7 days. And so was it a party that the players went to, coaches went to, whatever it was? They've got to figure that out. And if that's going to be the case, they need to come down strong on the Titans. And I think that what I like is how forceful they're being. Now, again, I'm against that $150,000 fine for coaches not wearing the mask and all that stuff, because at least they're tested every day and all that stuff. If it's an assistant coach, fine, but not the head coach. But what you like is how strong they're coming. They're saying that they'll suspend, like, for example, they had the fines on the Raider players who went to the Waller charity event, and I think that's good. Now they're almost at the stage where the next outbreak and spread is going to be such that I think they're going to mandate everybody being in a hotel for the remainder of the season. And what I'm disappointed at is the Tennessee Titans, even with the 18 positive tests, did not put their team in a hotel situation. That's a mistake, because they've got to rectify this. Because if they get one more test in the next day or two, they're not going to be able to play the game against Buffalo. And that'll be 2 weeks where you don't have undefeated teams going against each other. So I think that the idea is that there's going to be fines, suspensions, and all that stuff. We'll see what they do with the Titans, but I think they're doing a good job.
John Clayton, it is always great to be with you. Thank you for giving us some of your time on Tuesday. And do you have a prediction, Padres versus Dodgers?
Dodgers. I think
but
Dodgers
John knows in Seattle what true baseball heartache is, because the Mariners, you thought we had it bad? The Mariners haven't made the playoffs since 2001, and they're the only team in all of baseball to never make a World Series.
Yeah, it's the longest non-playoff drought in right now in the league. But once Buffalo made the playoffs a couple years ago in football, that ended that, and now put Seattle at the number one spot.
Wow!
You did have King Griffey Jr. though.
That's true.
Yeah, 20 plus years ago. Yeah,
and Randy Johnson.
And you're taking the Dodgers over the Padres. That's too bad.
Well, yeah, but I love the way that they've built up. I mean, that's the fun part about this baseball season. How the Tampa Bay team and the Padres, showed you can build this thing up. And I give the Padres a lot of credit, because here they were at the beginning of the season being buyers and not sellers, and trying to get this team as good as it can get. But I still look at the Dodgers as that is a really talented team.
All right, John Clayton stopping by. John, a pleasure. Thanks.